Welcome back to Ferocious Education. This is Zed. Today we're going to be talking about NAK, Northern Dynasty Minerals. Make sure to share this video if you like it and subscribe to the channel to help grow. Drop a like. Without further ado, I'm going to go through technical analysis here, and then I'm going to go moving towards news, coming catalysts, and what I think about the stock. So first things first, we get to look in terms of the average directional index. It is sitting at under 45, so that's a strong indication of a movement. Although it did come around from 40. Still around 45-ish, so not a lot of change there. So not a strong trend forming per se, but we need to look into the 1 hour interval for there. William %R puts the stock towards neutral at this point. It was overbought for some time now and kind of received a pullback today. Momentum, it seems that it has lost a great amount of momentum that it did have and did create previously on the run. MACD looks like it's actually decreasing and looking towards either hitting in closer to lower MACD on the histogram, or perhaps facing a negative reversal. Unbalanced volume here, you get to see that it did lose quite a bit of shares here. I think it's around almost 100 million shares going in from 22nd to today. Going in towards the averages, you get to see the 10 SMAs above the 30 EMA. Stock price is still on a bull run above the 200 SMA and the 50 SMA. Moving on to the 5 days 1 hour interval here, we get to look at the stock has gone quiet through a bit of a bleeding that doesn't seem to be actually stopping here. On the MACD, it has been stable almost all day, where it didn't see a chance of reversal, and in the aftermarket, in the extended market, it seems that it actually decreased in there. So what you want to see is this one here turning towards the positive side and seeing a bit of a recovery. Although this might actually either need accumulation or PR. You get to see an unbalanced volume. There has been quite a bit on terms of the stocks being lost there. The average directional index shows a 25.9, which suggests a trend forming, perhaps in the negative direction. Although I'll just mark it as sloppy for the time being and not confirm a trend. William %R puts the stock incredibly oversold today, almost all throughout the day. Momentum seems to have been lost quite a bit during the day. The stock price is under the trading action zone, so it was on the trading action zone a bit earlier today in the pre-market, and then kind of dipped below. It's significantly under the VWAP. It is currently just broke the 200 SMA, and that's usually a dangerous sign when you're looking to the 1 hour. You want to set your stop limit usually to 200 SMA if it's above it, and it just broke it. It did break as well the 50 SMA, but it has been hovering a bit over it yesterday, and it was above. So you can see here that's a little bit of a bearish sign, and the third bearish sign in the moving average is that the 30 EMA is now above the 10 SMA. So that's as well another warning sign there. Moving on towards the moving averages, what we get to see here is that the stock hasn't touched still the moving average band. What might happen is that it could see that kind of movement where it does pull back a little and jump back, but we'll see that in the trend line. On the unbalanced volume, you get to see that the amount of lost shares there in terms of the unbalanced volume. We were somewhere around 120 million on the unbalanced volume, proceeded to be dumped all the way down to 27.4 million in terms of the unbalanced volume. Now, that's not the amount of shares held in retail, but it shows indication that people are getting rid of the stock rather than buying the stock. Moving on towards trend lines here. Gonna try to identify any trend lines. Now, the previous trend line would have been something like this one here, hitting a little bit down below, and that has been broken down. The current trend line right now doesn't show any significance in that sense. There was one that was going upwards there, so what I'm going to try to do here quickly is do Fibonacci retracements, and then I'm going to look in terms of 1 day intervals and see if there's any kind of channel we can draw. Now, Fibonacci retracements put the support at 172. It seems that there is a traditional support, or actually this is not really a support that it's looking at. This is more of just where it's stopping right now. It did bounce off the 176, so you can per se, it could be a pivot point there, or a support needs still to be confirmed. Resistance seems to be putting around 184. Following that, we're putting it around 188. Following that is around 194 on the Fibonacci retracements, and it's confirmed here in traditional. Going on as well, you get to see 2.03. That seems to be a resistance. 2.11 on the Fibonacci retracements, and then following that 219. So you get the point there. On terms of supports, it seems that the next Fibonacci support is 172. Following that, the traditional is around 1.6. Following that is around 1.55. Now let's try to figure out the current trends that it's holding. We'll do the 3 months, 1 day. And we're going to try to identify perhaps if we can draw a trend line out of there, and if we can draw a channel. So it seems that the trend line that would have been this way here has been broken before, so it still hasn't broken that kind of trend line. Let's try to pull it a little bit further, and let's try to draw a channel here quickly to try to identify if there is in fact any patterns here. So this one wouldn't hold well. I mean, you can consider this one to be a channel here, but it did break it, so it's still not looking very well. The stock price is significantly above that channel in that run, but it was as well below the channel, so it's still not a trend, and I will just ignore it. Now going on towards the company's information. Moving on quickly, of course, they had their controversial Alaska mine approved by the Army Corps. And then going on, Trump administration seeks to greenlight the controversial Alaska mine. Now, they did receive their EIS approval today. So there's the next one here. I'm going to mention it in a little. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to have the final decision within 30 days. So this project is as well still a Canadian project, but still happening in the US by a Canadian company, Canada's Northern Dynasty Minerals. I can see that it's probably getting approved with the kind of situations going on right now, especially in Alaska's kind of population decrease. This is supposed to be increasing population in that area from what I've read here. I'll read it in a second. Of course, the Pebble mine here is expected to take 2 to 3 years to complete. Following 4 years construction phase, once operating, Pebble will be among the leading metals producers in the United States. As described in the project description, each year during the 20-year production, the proposed Pebble mine would produce minerals concentrates containing on average 318 million pounds of copper, 362,000 ounces of gold, 14 million pounds of molybdenum, and 1.8 million ounces of silver. So that's a significant amount of metals that would put him on the lead in terms of metal producers in the United States. Going on as well, they did have a 35.3 million bought deal. So that was a total of 24 million kind of shares, around 1.46 per share. So this was basically, it was more of an underwritten agreement, so it's not a public direct offering, etc. So but that shows a little bit of sign of growth as well. Going on towards financials and whatnot, this is on their website, financial reports and filings. So what I could only see here is the 2019 periods and whatnot, so I couldn't see the 2020 first quarter. Oh, it actually just here, it's updated, huh? So we'll take a quick look in towards this one here. What we get to see, what we're looking for here is a bit of room for growth, and you get to see that it seems to have had the same amount of total assets, just a very small difference. Equity and liabilities is pretty much the same. In terms of the 3 months ending, the expenses has been less. So in terms of the net loss has been less, but they did have other comprehensive income loss around 10,733. They do have they do have basic and diluted loss per share of 0.02 compared to 0.05. I would also give this as well to COVID-19 happening here. The cash, they have less cash than they did before, so that might say that they might need to raise some cash later on, especially with their mine starting. But I wouldn't be worrying so much about this at the current moment. They usually would increase their number of shares first, and usually we'd get to know a little bit about it. But that could be a possibility in the future. So what is the investments highlight they have? So what they're trying to do is, of course, the mine. So they're trying to get it to be on the start of copper, gold, molybdenum, and silver. We can see that basically in terms of global ranking of primary copper and deposit contains, they're trying to be there on pretty much the second. You get to see that they are in the tops in their industry as well. So let's take a quick look here. Now there's a lot of information there. I won't go through it, even though I'd love to, because this is one of my fields that I'm actually interested in, civil engineering. So quickly here, you'll get to see that the program investments and de-risking, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get more permits for mines and whatnot. State permitting 2023. Pebble will initiate the state of Alaska permitting as soon as practicable. No, they've already done that kind of part. So what is the next 90 days? So what they're trying to do is trying to get record of decision. They already had their EIS, so that's the next catalyst, record of decisions. And that should be sometime, it says, well, the next 90 days of July 24th, somewhere in the next 6 weeks or so. So there might be a little bit of time there. Of course, there is a bit of different things here that you might consider as potential catalysts, but I would expect that one to be the first. There could be as well some talks and mentions for this stock as well on the news and whatnot, so that can be also increase the stock price. They're trying to have basically strong, sustainable native partnerships in Southwest Alaska, strategic alignment, and federal state level. So there will be talks and mentioning for this stock. Now comes into what I think about the stock. Quite interesting, you get to see as well that there is some institutional buy-ins. On the 23rd, yesterday, it seems that this company here has increased their shares by 35.41. Now on the 20th, they have some companies have actually dumped shares, but yesterday marks the first day where a company is actually buying in more shares there. So that's interesting for me. Nothing else here in terms of news. So what would I do? I would, of course, wait a little until it gets a hold of a good support, somewhere at least around the 1.6 mark, where it's kind of stabilizes and accumulates a little. Because what it looks like here is that it's a dipping. It really tanked today, going in from what it was from 284 down a whole dollar. I would love to see it accumulate a little there and see what goes on. Of course, there is like the support currently at 174. But I would like to see it accumulate around there before considering buying. Now, if you're holding this stock, I would still wait as well to see what the next movement of the day, if that MACD fixes up. If it does, I would definitely hold for at least a day or so going on Monday. And especially today has been red for the start and on Thursday. So that's my opinion on the stock. What do you think about the stock? Make sure you mention it down in the comments below. Share, subscribe, and like, and have a wonderful day.